That's it. Looks like it's live. All right, great. Let me make sure that this is on mute so that I can't hear myself. Thank you for joining the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines, and this is the Sunday Roast and Hot Takes. I've got a couple of pre-selected topics, but of course, we'll be watching for comments in on YouTube. If I can see them, I have to bob my head around because I have this big camera in my face. The screen and the there we go. Mike Dry is with us. Appreciate you, Mike. Thank you so much. How was Thanksgiving? All right. I wanted to share screen too, because although I had a couple of some pre-selective topics, I have some other things I can go into if I can make it happen while I'm here on camera. So for a lot of people know that I'm releasing the second edition of my first book, Scintilla, and I'm halfway through a second book, but the process of re-editing this second edition was just finished today. And a matter of fact, I'm going to open that document now and I'm going to convert it into a PDF and see if I can launch it and put it right up into KDP while sharing screen so people could see. Because really, I've only got one shot at showing people because once it's up there and it's published, it's published. So right now, I know you can't see my screen, but I am converting this document that I wrote in LibreOffice, which is a free version of Microsoft Office, and I'm converting it to a PDF. So that's what I'm doing because I believe it's been a while since I've published on KDP, but I think they want the book in PDF format. But I'm ready either way. I have the updated artwork as well. And give me just a moment and I'll try to get into where I can share screen. That's going to be through Zoom. So many programs open right now. Appreciate you bearing with me. That's the one. Okay. So I don't know if you can still see me on the screen or not. I think, Mike, if you can tell me, I think it's just showing this, probably my browser. So this shows, and I'll make it a little bit bigger for both me and you all. So this is what it looks like if you log into KDP. This is what you see if you've uploaded your book. Now, the reason why there's so many versions in here is, of course, on Amazon, you can sell a Kindle book, which is formatted slightly differently. You can sell a paperback and a hardcover. Now, if you sell an audiobook, that's also part of Amazon, but that's on a completely different site by Amazon called ACX. But all of the digital and print versions are on here. So this would be a completely new book, so I'll try to move this over for a second so that I can see it a little better. And Mike, can you see that okay? Let me know if you can see it. Okay, good. Hey, Marie. Good day. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. It's probably a totally different day there, Marie. It's Sunday night for us. So I'm going to go to, and this is going to be a little tough because, as I always say on camera, I'm the world's worst multitasker. But let me see if I can get through at least uploading. Let's just go for the paperback version. So you can see the book has a title. Oh, it's a little blurry. Yeah, it's saying that we had a big storm go through earlier, and it's saying my stream bit rate is pretty low. Let me close. I don't have a bunch of tabs open, but let me close a few things that might help. And I changed the subtitle to the book, so I'm gonna have to copy and paste it because I don't have it memorized. Isn't that terrible? And as I mentioned on previous episodes, I use LibreOffice, which is a free version of Microsoft Office. It does all the exact same things. And then when you need to convert it to PDF, you can do that. So the book is Scintilla. The subtitle is The Ultimate Guide to Generating Business, Product, and Service Ideas. I switched that up a little bit from the previous version. It's not a part of a series. It's not an edition. I'm just going down the list here. This is how easy it is. You just fill this information out. People, companies charge you big money to do this. And the description, I'll actually pull that from I'll pull that from the previous version. I'll probably reuse that for now. I own the copyright, so I talked a little bit about that. Sometimes if you go in and purchase an ISBN with other people, how you can still retain your rights. Obviously, there's nothing explicit in the book. I mean, it's for all ages, but obviously a maximum, you know, adults would get the most out of it. Primary marketplace. I'm in the US, so it's Amazon.com. But if you're in another region of the world, like that's Australia, Canada, Japan, not sure on that one. The Netherlands, Italy, Spain, France, Germany, UK. So your dominant market, you want to make sure that's correct. Now this part I won't go too far into this and then I'll jump back into the topics because I forgot how many moving parts there are here. But choosing categories and keywords at this part of your book is very critical. I even read a book just about how to make sure that the keywords are correct. You only get 7. It is pretty important. I would say the number one thing, I know I've hammered it into the ground, but having a good cover first. So I'll have to, like I said, this is complex enough, and I'm such a poor multitasker. I won't be able to do all of this on camera. But I did want you to see the back end of KDP. It's pretty easy to get into. ACX is the same way. So you basically fill this information out, upload your ISBN, upload your cover art, your manuscript via PDF. It takes them a day or two to scan the material to make sure that it's okay. And then it's published at the prices that you set. And you can set different prices for the Kindle, paperback, and audiobook as well. Now, I haven't re-narrated the book, so I'm going to have to do that. That's going to take place sometime between now and Christmas, probably, the narration of the book. So I'm going to check the chat here just to see if there was any questions about that. Yeah, it's Monday, lunchtime. So in New South Wales, Australia, it's lunchtime on a Monday. Wow. You're in the future. You're living in the future, Marie. I was going to do this as a completely separate episode, and I know this is going to sound kind of funny, but I think people can identify with this. I was looking at data about what people have to go through to become dentists, at least here in the United States. And it's about, of course, they've got 4 years of pre-med and then another 4 years of dental school. And then some people don't just jump out and start their own clinic. Sometimes they'll work with another dentist's office for 2 to 3 years. So education-wise, on average, it costs about $400,000 to go through the pre-med, the med, and then, of course, you're kind of underpaid as you're working for someone else. To open a clinic, that's another $400,000. So you're at more than $750,000. So I was thinking to myself, it's amazing. There are people that spend 8 years in school, $800,000 for this wonderful clinic and facility. And they put the most rude, poorly trained, bad customer service person as a receptionist. Now, I know you're smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it blows me away that people do this. But part of that is dental school is not business school. But even I know some business school graduates that have frontline personnel that should never be around other human beings. It's the person, like think about at a dental office, that person is the face and the voice of that company. If you call, you get the receptionist. If you walk in, you get the receptionist. And in more than just dental clinics, we've all run into those situations where that person is just diabolically poorly trained, or that might even not be a good psychological fit. I mean, there are some people that just don't belong in customer service. They should, they have skills in other places, but they definitely don't need to be out, meeting and greeting people. So let me check the comments here. In the 80s, you didn't have to complete a 4-year degree. That's right. Yeah, yeah. In the old days, like, the barber shop was the dentist and cut your hair and extracted your tooth. And yeah, now it's a big time science. How crazy does my background look? That's actually giant blocks of styrofoam. I had to turn the lights down because when I turn it up, it doesn't look nearly as decent as it does now. But I wanted to get rid of the virtual background. But there's a wall of styrofoam behind me, giant, imagine concrete blocks, but twice the size. They're all stacked up. It's kind of a cheap way of having a nice backdrop there. Give me a second. Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's hard to see. Like I said, I had to turn the lights down just a little bit to make it a bit more dramatic. And I don't know if you can tell, but let's see, I'm always gesturing on the wrong side. The blocks push backwards a little bit. So it starts out with the blocks at the bottom pushed forward and then it slowly kind of rolls backwards. And that's also to prevent reverberation because I am going to narrate the audio book in here. So Marie, do you want to give us an update on where you're at on your book, number of words, how close you are to publishing? No pressure. I'm just pulling some stuff from the channel here. Oh, thank you to whoever just subscribed. We got a new subscriber. Thank you very much. And I got a really nice message from David Figueroa earlier. We're connected on Facebook and LinkedIn. He was a past guest on my podcast. I've been a guest on his podcast. He interviews a lot of different people. He focuses on people with challenges like autism and physiological disabilities. And he has, I'm trying to think of what it is. Cerebral palsy. So he deals with that. And he's also got a secondary channel where he's been doing really well with that, interviewing people from the wrestling world, WCW, even some of the WWF, kind of the old school, my era. And he's been doing really, really good with that. But he wrote me a nice message today that yeah, like the Spinal Tap stay that caught my attention. Yeah. Yeah, like what was that? Stonehenge. But David wrote to me today, and I don't know if I told him beforehand, but he bought a copy of Scintilla, this first version, and he was surprised that his name was in the book. Well, all of the original guests, I think the 50 something interviews I did, all of those episodes are listed, including Marie. You're in there as well, obviously. And he just said that it was nice seeing his name in the book. Thank you, doing your first review. Okay, good, good, good. And so he got a lot of pleasure from being mentioned in the book. And there's a secondary reason why I put all of those guest names in there. And I'd never talked about it on camera, and I didn't had never even mentioned it until I wrote it to him via Facebook today. And I said, well, the reason why I did that is I remember in 2011 a book came out that mentioned my father. It was only a sentence. It was just a brief little thing mentioning by name and the work that he did because he was really good at doing auto body. And I just remember how much joy he got from being mentioned. I mean, we're from a working class family and none of us are going to end up in Hollywood. So to have our name in a book that was a big deal to my dad. And I remember how much that meant to him. And I thought, okay, well, when I do this book, I want to make sure I mention as many people as possible. So anybody that mentored me, the people that helped me along, a lot of those people are mentioned in there. And of course, everybody that were so kind to spend their time on the episodes to come in for the podcast, I put their names in there as well. And it was a sign of respect. And of course, too, it did exactly, what I had intended. So David got a nice, it's nice to know that he's got a book in his hands where he's mentioned. So yeah, I love giving that out to people because it means a lot. It was very good for me to finish the book, but to include other people makes me a lot more happy than, and plus it's easier to do that than to talk about yourself the whole time in the book. So sometimes it makes it easier when you can uplift others because I don't want to rah, rah, rah myself on here. I would get bored of that pretty quick. So 39,000 words. Okay, good. That's what Marie's got for her book. And first review. All right. So what do you think, Marie, is going to be the final word count? Are you trying to get to is there a specific number where you feel like you're going to be done by the time you get to that number? And then I'm going to pull up something on my channel real quick. Yeah. So we were talking about customer service too, and in a way, it's almost self-fulfilling prophecy. So the fact that AI is replacing so many receptionists and front end workers isn't because I think it's wrong to assume that quote unquote these young folks can't be polite. I think there are a lot of young people that are polite. What I think the problem has been, and of course, you know, Mike and I are in the same industry. There's a lot of lazy management out there. And if management took the time to set the expectations and to train reception, and unfortunately, a lot of these front end office workers, they put in application, they get hired with virtually no training at all. And, you know, they're chasing, they're chasing off customers left and right. I do think some personalities are better than others for being the face of the company, but again, you've got a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got management that won't train people. So of course they say, well, AI is the solution when really good management would be the solution. Because if AI is doing everything, then nobody has a job and nobody can buy anything. So where, you know, what possible positive benefit could that have? And in with that same thing, so if is AI is eating away at these what we call stepping stone jobs, you know, like one of my first jobs was at McDonald's, which is very typical. Um, okay, around 30,000 words. All right, good, good. Back to Marie and okay, great. Yeah, if you want to share it before you publish it and you know, I'm no great editor, but I could take a quick look. You know, if there's any value in my opinion, I'd be happy to share it. And again, you know, my biggest thing is have a gorgeous cover. You know, that's the that's really the selling point. You know, that's the suit and tie. That's the dress at the cocktail party. It's a wonderful thing to have a good cover on there. Um, so onto the AI and the people being replaced by the jobs by the machines, we're losing a lot of these stepping stone jobs. So I worked at McDonald's, I worked at a video rental store back when we had VHSs, and there were all these stepping stone jobs. Now, it's very strange. I guess the workforce is just producing these kids from college and they're just getting plopped into these jobs and they've not had any jobs previous to that. So if there's no stepping stone jobs that they can work, let's say between 16 and 21, imagine entering the workforce for the first time at 21. And the things that I learned because I was working from 16 on, interacting with the public and talking to people. So if you think about it, those stepping stone jobs that you get between 16 to 21 is the first time in your life that you're forced in an environment outside of your own social circle. So when you're 16, you're around other 16-year-olds typically, or you're hanging out with family. Well, if you're in a restaurant environment, now you're forced to deal with people that you're not related to of all different ages. And AI is wiping out a lot of those stepping stone jobs. So we've got to figure out a way to mentor people that are 16 to 21. And this might be a business opportunity. So again, Scintilla is all about looking at what's going on right now and how can you take this bad thing that's happening and turn it into something positive. And I think there has to be a little bit like the Society of Retired Executives, like we have in the United States. We're going to have to, if we want these young people to be successful in the workforce, there has to be something in there for people 16 to 21 where they can get exposed to the public and interact with people because I just can't imagine dropping a 21-year-old who's never worked before into the workforce. It's got to be absolutely cataclysmic. Yeah, thank you, Marie. Yeah, not an exhibitor on your level, but yeah, I've done it. And certainly gone to a lot of trade shows. The boat show is the big thing in my hometown. Wow, people go nuts over that. And when Marie and I, when we had our podcast episode together, her specialty are trade shows, and she mentioned so many things. And I've watched her channel where she interviews other people and talks about trade shows. There's so much to that. I mean, it's more than just getting a couple of a table cover and some banners, and there are really ways that you can leverage that. That's amazing, and that works for some industries better than others. Most people were all told, get on Facebook, get on LinkedIn, get on YouTube, go live, get the views, build things up. That's kind of the Gary Vaynerchuk way. But if you're at a trade show, particularly if that's the perfect place to reach your target audience, then that could be money well spent. Do you want to spend 3 years trying to build your YouTube presence, or do you want to spend 3 days where you're in front of, two or three, six, 10, 20,000 of your perfect demographic? And there's an expense to both. There's an expense to being a podcaster, and there's an expense to going to a trade show. So obviously, balance everything out. But yeah, so I see young people at trade shows too, and some of them are clueless. They're sent by the company because they're willing to work on the weekend whenever it's going on, and the company is just checking that box. We need to be at this. We need an exhibition booth this year, and then they send people that maybe aren't the best representatives of the company. So they need to know what they're doing. So going down that rabbit hole of AI, the teenage jobs, the lack of the stepping stone jobs that'll have to be replaced by some kind of mentorship, unless nobody deals with the public anymore. Because, like I said, I couldn't imagine that people just come in out of nowhere, that have just gone to school every day and have only experienced what goes on in the household, and then to go into the workforce at 21. The lack of social skills they'll have will just hamper. I just can't imagine it. They don't even have any experience working as a team, or having working under leadership if they just go to school, because that's a very simple hierarchy at home. Mom and dad, they're at the top, you're at the bottom. At school, there's the teacher, they're at the top, students at the bottom. Whereas in the office, there's layers. It's a layer cake. There's all these different, and to navigate that, but to walk in at 21 dealing with that social dynamic for the first time, that's going to be very, very strange. So that begs the question: if we do wipe out all of these jobs, at least people in the US, and I think other countries too, are talking about universal basic income and what that might look like. And it's possible. I mean, if there's enough AI and enough robots, it could happen. I know a lot of people don't want it to happen, but progress is progress. The people that were putting horseshoes on horses weren't really excited about the car, but the cars came anyway. And now we're going through whatever's going to happen next. And the big thing is to keep your eyes open, be prepared for that change, and put yourself in a situation to have a good lifestyle because of it. Down economies present opportunities, up economies present opportunities, and it's a constant evolution. And if you don't stay changing with the times, then you're not going to do very well. It's same thing like in nature. You have to constantly defend, as an entrepreneur, you have to constantly defend that territory like a lion or a lioness, taking care of their group of people. And Marie says, and you have to have good customer service when you're on the booth. Yeah, yeah. Standing on your feet, get your crew a rubber mat. Don't just send, I wonder how many people just get sent to, excuse me, set up an exhibition, and they're standing because all of those halls are concrete floors, right? And if you're going to be out there hustling 8, 10 hours a day, put a rubber mat behind the exhibition booth. And I'm sure employers don't usually send their staff with those because they're expensive, they're heavy, and why should they care about their employees' comfort? So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. That might be a whole extra chapter in there, Marie, about, their comfort. And yeah. Yeah, no one can interact in person anymore. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You want your most charismatic people out there, both at the booth and at the reception desk. Again, I couldn't imagine $400,000 to open a dentist office. And then you put somebody with no experience and no social skills on the phone. Talk. So that person is the first person they talk to on the phone and the first person they see. Now I'm lucky because the dentist I was going to here, the closest one to me, 40 minutes away, the receptionist was dynamite. She's not just the best at that location. She's probably one of the best receptionists I've ever dealt with. But what's different about the dentist? The dentist gets business coaching. He's hired a consultant, and I believe he's in a mastermind group. So there you go. There's all the difference. He didn't just go to dental school. He wanted to maximize every aspect of his business, and he was willing to invest in it. And his office staff are very aligned, reflecting all of that money that he spent. So everything from the placement to the TV to the intake form, everything has been analyzed. The only thing I don't like about his location is every contact with him is there's always some kind of upsell. And I get it. That's part of part of what the consultants were saying because they want to get the average ticket price up. I mean, that's an old school thing. And I warned him, I warned him about it last time I was there. I said, I get what you're doing, but I'm in marketing. I said, don't, you don't have to do that to me because I'll tell you what I need. You don't need to sell me on everything. He tried to sell me a night guard, which is a little piece of plastic you put in between your teeth when you sleep. He was trying to sell me one for $700. And, I said, I warned you, Doc. I said, don't try, don't try to sell me something I can go to a sports store and get a $15 version, like what the boxers wear and just be fine with it. That works just as well. I'll chew through one in about a month, but $700 for a piece of plastic would just be hilarious. Let me get caught up on the comments. Mike said, I got to go to a trade show. They chose me to draw for the grand prize for a trip to the Bahamas. This lady said, draw my name. An hour later, you drew her name. What are the odds of that, Mike? That had to be 1,000,000 to 1. 1,000,000 to 1. Rubber mats and runners. Let's see, runner, if I'm thinking of that right, it's like carpet, but it's got a heavy mat backing and maybe a little bit harder to flip over because you don't want your people tripping. I'm sure people get those cheap runners and then they're tripping all over the place. Yeah, 400 grand. That's just, and even I remember when Subway sandwiches here in the US, you could open one of those for about $25,000. Of course, that was a very long time ago, but I do remember that you needed a minimum of 25,000. And I think a McDonald's, I haven't checked, so you can Google it and check, but I think you've got to have 1,250,000 to even talk to them. And I think you may have to open two. Now there's a couple of franchises, they won't even just let you open one. You've got to open two. So the barrier to entry is very, very high, even on these, tiny sandwich shops. And they put people in the front. As I mentioned in my book, Scintilla, I go through the experience of going to the local gym, which is currently under renovation, but it's the gym that's 40 minutes away, and how much of a hassle it was to get through the front door. And it wasn't just that the staff are bad. They're not, whether you get a hello when you go in or not is sometimes hit or miss, but getting into the gym was very complicated. And I break down this really bizarre, complex process of getting through the door, getting signed in, and all the obstacles you run into just going in through the gym. A lot of business owners, and I mean this virtual too. I don't just mean people with retail locations. People need to go through or have friends go through their experience, whether it's a web page, whether it's a click funnel, or whether it's a fixed retail location, and go through that customer experience. I mentioned to somebody the other day, I think half the links on their homepage are broken, and they said, oh, yeah, we haven't updated that in a long time. Well, you have to, make sure, I'm sure I probably have some dead links somewhere too, but you have to make sure that there's no obstacles and there's no transactional friction when people are trying to give you money or do business with you. And I'm shocked that, I understand people get caught into doing the business, doing the thing, making the hamburger or baking the bread or whatever the function of your shop or your job is. People get so deeply into that, they forget what is the customer experiencing. Turn that eye around. And I think it might surprise some people, that section of the book, how complicated it was to get into the gym. And, I don't think I am any different from anybody else, but when I go through that, I tend to reverse engineer it. And that's a great opportunity. So I even mentioned some of the business, some of the products and services that an entrepreneur could come up with to sell it to solve that gym's problem if they were willing to pay for it. Oh, shoe runners, like Nikes, gym shoe runners. Okay, runners, yeah. Running shoe. I guess we'd say running shoes here, yeah. Yeah, they've got some nice ones. What's that one brand that's really popular right now? Hokum or I don't know. I tried a pair and I like minimalistic shoes myself with very, very thin bottoms for balance and control, especially if I'm jogging. But yeah, if you want cushion if you're going to be on your feet all day. We have a company here in the United States called San Antonio Shoe Company, or SAS. Really popular for people in the service industry. I wore a pair of SAS when I worked in an Italian kitchen, and they were amazing. I mean, just hands down, probably the best shoe I'd ever had. And of course, the most expensive pair, second most, other than the shoes I wore when I was climbing roofs. But yeah, it really, a good pair of shoes makes a big, big difference. And if you're going to be on your feet all day, that really helps to have a good pair of shoes. Any questions about any of that, about customer service or the AI? Or anything. Open floor. I mean, it's the Sunday roast and hot takes. So anything on your mind at all. And thank you for the people that are watching. I appreciate whoever subscribed. And we started, I don't know if people noticed, but some days we put out one short a day, some we put out two shorts a day. I was really surprised that I'm not surprised, pleasantly surprised that the relationship coach that came on, she didn't know me from Adam. We just had a quick chat on LinkedIn, and her and I went live with almost no prep. We did about a half an hour together, and the two of her shorts that I did that I just pulled from the live did very, very well. So although I'm an entrepreneurship YouTube channel, primarily talking about business, she was talking about relationships between the entrepreneur spouse and somebody who's maybe just working a salary job, or maybe a stay-at-home parent. And people really like that content. I mean, I wouldn't want to, that's not a subject I would want to talk about every day, but people really, yeah, Hoka. People really responded well to that episode, especially the short. So I guess people are hungry to find out about more relationship information. Like I said, I wish I had a background in that, but I'm probably not the right guy to talk about that stuff. I mean, I do look at relationships from an evolutionary psychology, realistic, data-driven way. But yeah, her stuff was really good. You could tell she knew what she was talking about. She's a relationship coach for entrepreneurs, and it's always great to have something niched down that small, and she's been doing it a long time. She was a lot of fun. So maybe her and I need to sit down and do a larger, full 1 hour. But those are tougher, for those of you that are doing podcasts. I know Marie also does interviews. When you do those full 1 hour, because it really takes about an hour and 20 minutes to come out with edited down 40 minutes of good high impact content. I mean, you could just shoot an hour and throw it up there on the internet, but people just won't respond to it. You know, it's crazy. You got to be rolling out a grenade about every 5 minutes, or people aren't interested. And that's why the shorts do so much better. They want that quick hit of dopamine. Yeah. No, in this case, so No, no, I've had some bad interactions with receptionists, and and I started to really think about wasn't I having that experience earlier in my life, and I started thinking about why when people get to a certain age they get cranky, and what I think is has changed. So if back when I was 20 and I was going to the dentist was going to be older than me. This person was a professional and I didn't have a degree. So if I think about it from a classism perspective, this person is a senior to me. They're entitled respect, and if I have to wait a little bit longer, or if I'm not treated with deference at the reception desk, I'm not as sensitive to it at 20 because I'm really going to see someone who's kind of on a pedestal in society, dentists and doctors and things like that. Well, now that I'm of that age and that probably going to be older than the doctor or about the same age, um, I suppose I've grown to expect a certain level of deference because of my age. And this gets done a little much more better in Asian societies than it does particularly in the United States. So I think when I'm not treated with at least the most basic extension of respect, it bothers me a little bit. But I do think we're going through something culturally here too, where good service was emphasized before, and there is a generational divide between how I spoke to other people when I was young, even in the customer service jobs I had when I was young. I was always respectful, even when I was angry. I made sure that I was being very respectful, and I'm still this way to this day. But no, in this case, Marie said, "Did I think the receptionist could be a family member?" No, um, most of the cases around here, you can tell they're not relatives. I just think that they're taking in they get resumes and it's a throwaway job to somebody who's a kid, 18 to let's say 22. And those front end positions have high turnover because look, you're not going to go from receptionist to being the dentist. So a lot of these offices, there's very little upward mobility. So in a way, I can look at it from every angle. I can look at it from the receptionist angle, from the doctor's angle, from the customer's angle. Um, if they're not making a very stimulating environment for the reception for the young hire, they're going to bounce, and then immediately they're going to have to run out and replace that person. So in high turnover jobs like that, I see managers and owners just not put a lot of effort into training those people. Well, the solution to that, and nobody wants to hear this, is an SOP. That's why the U.S. Army is so good at so many different things. We have a standard operating procedure and a manual for virtually everything. And the dentist who's busy filling teeth doesn't have time to write an SOP. If he's got a good office manager, he should from day one have. I'm a big fan of SOPs and checklists. Like when you come in the morning, you turn off the alarm. All that should be check boxes. And as you open that clinic and you start to figure out what you do day to day, you just have to jot down all of these things that it takes to get through the day, which then becomes a training manual for these young people. So again, I don't just blame young people. I do think we do have a generation here in the US that really don't understand customer service or work ethic. And that's not all of them, but it's a shockingly high number of them. I've seen them in positions where we'll bring them in at six figures and they won't show up on time or do their job, and they'll play games, and we've caught them not at their desk and all kinds of crazy I'm talking about in excess of $100,000 a year. They still wouldn't do their job. So it's not a matter of money. There's something culturally going on there, but with respect to the receptionist and kind of the stepping stone jobs, the lack of structure, the lack of formalized training, the lack of an SOP, I think makes it really, really difficult. And yeah, and for some of those reasons, the person doesn't want to be there. So maybe it might even be better if you do hire somebody that's a family member because maybe they're more vested. But I do know young people, we don't want to rob them of those stepping stone jobs. We need to do a better job. And we're losing a lot of our small businesses in the US, which were the great ways where these people could have these stepping stone jobs. But episode for another time. Any final thoughts, final questions as we wrap it up? And Marie, I'm looking forward to. Do you have a title for your book yet? I know there's a little bit of a delay there, so I'll wait for the response. We're getting a bit of rain too. I don't know if you can hear it. Might affect my signal. All right, Mike. You guys doing Christmas at the house, Mike? You doing the turkey and the stuffing and the whole 9 yards? Yeah, and Marie, I can walk you through that. KDP. I've done it with a couple of people, shown them how to do it. Um, the form that I ran into today, I think they made a few changes, but it's nothing that you couldn't get through. But we can do a screen share since I have Zoom. I have the paid version, so you can go on there and I can talk you through it while you're sharing your screen with me. All right, Mike, you're gonna enjoy Christmas at your nephew's. Yeah, we got a new restaurant at the end of the street, so I'm gonna see if they're gonna have something. A lot of the people are retirees here. They don't cook in this area. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. This was Sunday Roast and Hot Takes. Hope to see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.